What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I've got Ky Logue here. Really excited to have him on. He is a real estate investor, entrepreneur, podcaster, coach, and the owner of We Buy Sad Houses. He broke free from a life filled with negativity and poverty, and his mission is to help as many people as he can do the same thing. So, Ky, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for that intro, and yeah, thanks for having me on, Philip. Happy to be here, and yeah, excited to have this opportunity, man. But yeah, a little bit about me. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, business owner. I've been on this journey for about maybe 6, 7 years. Before that, never finished college, dropped out of college. Kind of had a tough time coming up as a kid. Yeah, I moved around a lot, and had abusive parents on both sides. So kind of seen both sides of things. Again, coming up from negativity, and then having success, and I mean, it's always roller coaster ups and downs, but I'm really happy where I'm at now, and it seems like everything's moving forward. And I detest a big part of that is being around the right people and connecting with people like you, and connecting with other like-minded people that are focused on success and getting to that next level. Just been a huge game changer for me.
Yeah, man, Apex and Arte and other groups like that have really been a game changer for me as well. It's amazing the perspective that you can get from these groups, and you think when you're around certain people and as you're getting into self-development and everything that okay, I'm thinking big, I'm having these awesome goals, I'm starting to make things happen, and then you get around these people that are light years ahead of you, and you're like, wow, okay, I think small. Like,
Yeah, for sure,
it's,
man.
it's
Yep.
crazy, just the dynamic change and how you get around the right groups and really, and it's not that you're looking down on yourself. I mean, sometimes that does happen. You do
Mm-hmm.
that comparison, but still, it's just like there's so much more that I can achieve, and I really haven't been thinking big. And getting around people that are thinking bigger than you is a huge thing. How do you feel that's really helped you out
Yeah,
with
man,
your
it's been
goals?
huge for me. Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I grew up, everyone I know now, I don't really connect with or associate with too much besides like a few key people that were like really there for me. But honestly, like where I grew up, a lot of people just didn't make it out. Like the opioid epidemic hit like the New England really hard up in like New Hampshire and like a lot of the areas up there, and it's a lot of people that I grew up with, went to school with, or unfortunately they're dead, and it's sad. And a lot of people are in jail, and it's just yeah, so it's sad to see, and like you're surrounded with people like that, it's hard to kind of break out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then even people I know that do well, and then comparatively, like the people I did know that like did make it out, did well, like I was doing really well compared to them. But
Mm.
once I joined up and in Apex and Arte and groups like that, and I'm like, oh, I've been thinking too small. There's
Mm.
all these things and goals I wanted to do that I'd kind of talk myself out of and let doubt and negative self-talk and my past. It honestly took a lot of internal work and kind of dealing with a lot of my baggage that I had from my past. So I really kind of accepted. Okay, now it's time. Time to be a man and be who I'm supposed to be and step into my role and who I'm supposed to what I'm supposed to do in life.
Hmm. And so, did you join Apex before you moved to San Antonio? Because I know you're in San Antonio now.
No, I joined like a month after, man. Yeah, I moved
Okay.
and kind of moving to Texas and moving to San Antonio was like another fresh start for me. And I'm like, oh, I kind of always wanted to actually join Arte first, and I followed Ed and Andy for a while. I went to the second 10X Growth Con, which we talked about before. And
Yeah.
yeah, I saw Andy at the first one. I saw Indiana at the second one. I'm like, oh, wow. These people are just givers. And like, you can tell they're
Hmm.
like really in the trenches and they're real entrepreneurs. And they just have this energy about them. And like, oh, I want to learn from these people. So I wanted to join Arte from the first one when they first released it because I actually DM'd Ed Milet and I said, hey man, I'd love to get mentored by you. Like, what do you have going on? I'd love to anything I can do, man, to work with you. And he said, oh, Arte is coming out soon, man. Like, stay tuned. And I'm like, okay. And so I was watching. It came out, and then I let that negative self-talk, those limiting beliefs, like, oh, I can't swing this right now. I can't afford it.
Hmm.
And I probably could have at the time. It would have been a stretch and would have been out of my comfort zone. But I talked myself out of it. And yeah, and then when I finally moved down here, I'm like, no, it's time. I need this. I'm kind of embarking on a bunch of new ventures and things I want to do. And yeah, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna get out of my comfort zone. And I'm just gonna make the jump.
Hmm. Yeah, man. Getting out of that comfort zone is so important, and I think people really underestimate how much the comfort zone really goes
Mm.
against you and really hurts you in your life. So really always try to stretch yourself and get out of the comfort zone. So important. And hopefully you'll get into Arte at some point. I mean, Apex is also in another amazing group. There's so many amazing groups within
Mm-hmm.
our groups that people have created as well from that to create their own masterminds and everything. And I know we're kind of coming out with a little syndicate for ourselves to help each other out, hold each other accountable and everything. So it's awesome to be able to get with each other. But one thing I want to bring up is I know you're married and
Mhm.
your wife is also a part of Apex. How has that changed? Because she didn't start at the same time as you, right? She came in a little bit later.
Yeah, she came in after. So I was in
Mm,
Apex first. I was in Arte first, like I said, and then I was also in Apex. And I kind of made the decision to just jump all into Apex and moved up to level two, which is entrepreneurs.
mm,
Um, and then I was also I'm in the accelerator group too. And yeah, just really just since I went to that first event, just met so many great people. I'm like, yeah, this is where I need to be. For the first time, I realized there's other people like me out there,
mm,
that want success, that want more in life, and that actually are focused on giving and want to help you get to that next level. So yeah, so I was kind of all in on the concept, and she went to Apex Live with me, and she was all about it too, and she was making a lot of good connections too, just from me being in there. She was connected with Taylor Feemster in the Apex Extended group, and then she's like, yeah, I want to join it too. So I mean, she's been, we've been on this journey for quite a while together. I started a couple years before on the entrepreneur thing, but she started her own thing shortly after, and yeah, so it's been great, man. It's been great for both of us. We made so many great connections, met so many great people, and yeah, it's cool because like she meets some people and I meet different people, and it's just
mm.
it's really cool how it works out, man.
Yeah, that is awesome. And so, how has that dynamic changed in y'all's marriage with her joining in on that?
Yeah, really, the dynamic hasn't changed, and we've been really solid for a while. We've
Mm,
honestly been together since I was 18. I met her. I was, like I said, didn't have easy coming up. When I met her, I
mm,
was homeless. I was a drug dealer. I was really just struggling, living life one day at a time, just to get to that next day. And when I met her, she was the first person from my entire life before then, the whole 18 years, that ever believed in me. And
mm,
I always had big dreams. I always had big goals. I always wanted to, make something of myself. At first it was to prove all those people who, that should have been there for me that weren't, prove them wrong. And
mm.
then, after I met her, it became I wanted to prove this one person right who actually believed in me. And so yeah, so that
Man.
was huge. So we've always been ride or die since then. And then yeah, it's been a crazy ride, but there's nobody else I'd rather be on it with.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's so good to see a couple that's on the same page and everything and really striving to be the best versions of themselves together, but also separate as well. Because I know, like you mentioned, both entrepreneurs, you're both doing your own thing. It just happens to be that they're both in real estate. She's on the
Yeah.
realtor side and you're on the fix and flip side and
Mhm.
everything. So it's just interesting, but still really awesome that y'all are on y'all's own journeys, but together at the same time.
Right. Yeah, we have our own lanes, and I think that's important with any business partnership or
Mm,
any partnership is kind of have clear defined roles and who's focusing on what. Because you don't want to be stepping on each other's toes all the time, or thinking this person's not doing enough, even though they're doing other things you're not thinking about. So
mm-hmm.
it's yeah, it's really important. I've had a lot of bad partnerships, so I've learned a lot from those, and yeah, I think that's having your own clear defined path and it is huge.
Yeah, yeah, very true. And it doesn't have to be that they're also on their own path, like entrepreneurship
Hmm.
path. I know some people don't have that in their marriages, and I'm actually one of those. And it's
Hmm.
okay, but that support still needs to be there for either
Right.
side. You can't just not support the person, especially in the entrepreneurship space. I mean, that's so much harder. There's volatility with everything. One day everything's amazing, the next you're down in the dumps. So it's just really having that support no matter what is so important. But really awesome that y'all have that marriage. I do want to switch paths a little bit and go down and talk about your podcast. So I know you got the branding on the wall, you got it on your hat there,
Yeah, man.
one day at a time. Tell us what that means besides the obvious.
Yeah, so is the obvious, like, it's focused on winning the day. You focus on winning today, tomorrow will take care of itself. But I first heard that lesson from my nana, and my grandmother, when I think I was 17, and
Mm-hmm.
said, didn't come up easy. I actually was tired of life, kicking me all the time. I was tired of being down. I had nowhere to go. I actually called my mom and I said, hey, I'd like to, I was homeless at the time. I said, is there any way I can come stay with you? I have nowhere to go. Like, I'm tired of this. And, she told me something, and we have slightly better relationship now, but she said, "Hey, she's like, no, you're like a cancer. You make everyone's life around you worse. You can't
Mm,
come here. You can't come here." And
man.
man, it got me down, man, it hit me hard. And like I said, I was selling drugs and stuff at the time just to get by, and I ended up trying to kill myself,
Mm,
and the gun jammed. It was really cheap, like high point gun. I don't know if you're into guns, but it's like the cheapest gun you can get. And luckily, I had that cheap gun because when I tried to cock it back, the bullet got caught in there, and I couldn't get it
Wow.
out. I was trying to fish it out with like a butter knife. I went to go get a butter knife, and by the time I finally got down, I like was calmed down a bit, and yeah, I just felt like I went for a walk, luckily, and yeah, I made one last call to my nana, and she didn't know what was going on. I didn't tell her really anything, but yeah, I just still I was struggling. I was just I was stressed. I had no idea what to do next. And, I just couldn't see a future path. I couldn't envision getting out of this, like where I was at. And I just didn't like being there. And she told me something. I don't remember much else of the conversation, but the one thing I do remember, and the one thing that stuck with me, she said, all you can do is take things one day at a time.
Hmm.
And she said it to me before. I've heard that saying before, but that one day it stuck with me, and I kind of felt, I don't know, I felt at peace. It's like I've discovered my faith since then, but I've kind of felt peace hearing that, and decided not to do it because I was going to go attempt to do it again after. And I kind of live my life by that, just one day at a time, just focus on today. I can't think about the past. I can't think about the long term future. I can know what I want in the future, but I can't stress and worry about it all.
Mm-hmm.
I can just do all you can do is just win that one today, because I mean today's the here and now is all you can control.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Andy Frisella talks a lot about that with
Mm-hmm.
the power list, the 5 tasks you do every single day, and really just winning the day. Because once you win enough days, you can start winning at life. You can start achieving those goals. And
Mm.
analogy, it's one step at a time, right? One step at a time, and eventually you're going to walk a mile or run a mile, whatever it is. It's the same thing, just breaking it down into bite-sized chunks, just finding a few things to work on. And as you start working towards them, everything else opens up. And I believe Ed Milet, he tells it way more
Mm-hmm.
eloquently, but on one of his speeches, he talks about that a lot. Like you just have to start going. And as
Mm.
you go towards that goal, once you know that goal, of course, you start trying something to get you towards there. And as you build upon the daily tasks and everything, more things open up. And you start figuring out, okay, I need to do this now. I need to do this now. But just start with something. It doesn't have to be everything. And of course, like you said, yeah, if you're focused only on one day at a time, that's the best way to do it versus, man, I want to be a millionaire, but I'm not a millionaire. And every day you're like, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a millionaire. Well, that's going to
Mm.
suck. But
Yeah.
hey, did you make $100 today? Did you do something to help get you set up to make $1,000 tomorrow or next week or whatever? It's all about just trying to take those incremental steps to get there.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think really just being present too, just being grateful, just thinking of all the things you do have. Because when you think
Mm,
about things you don't have and that you want, you're not there yet. Like you said, you're gonna be miserable the whole time. But for me, I've had nothing. Absolutely nothing. I used to have to steal food, and I remember probably the lowest points besides trying to kill myself for the second time was I literally remember stealing a Lunchable, and from Walmart, and I like went into the bathroom at Walmart and like ate it in there because I hadn't eaten
mm.
for a few days. And I remember just being so fucking low. So now I eat food. I'm grateful, And so sometimes I get out of that, but when I get back to that, ODAD or one day at a time mindset, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful I have food. I'm grateful I have my wife, someone who loves me. I'm grateful I have community and Apex. I have people around me. I'm grateful for my goals. So it's really just being present.
Yeah, man. And that's another big thing, having that gratitude, man. That really changes your attitude. I mean,
Mm.
the gratitude attitude kind of thing, but really just being grateful for even the little things, even the smallest things. But as you start thinking positively, you can really get out of that negative mindset. Is that something that you try and teach and coach people and even talk about on the podcast? Is
Yeah. I think mindset is the foundation to everything.
Mhm.
Because whatever you use, like reticular activating system (RAS), whatever you, it's like scientifically proven. Whatever you look for, you'll find.
Mhm.
So if you're only seeing everything that's wrong, and you're wondering why is everything keep going bad in my life? Why do I keep attracting all this bad stuff in my life? It's because you're attracting it. That's
Mhm.
what you're looking for. You're looking for something to complain about. You can be driving. Someone cut me off on traffic. Screw that guy. He cut me off, and you let it ruin your whole day. And then it's like you get out of bed, you stub your toe, and you get off
Yeah.
on the wrong foot, like people say, and just keep spiraling. And it's
Mhm.
really it's a spiral, and because you keep going down and down like at the bottom of the funnel. And so yeah, but I mean it's the opposite. I mean it's a lot harder to be positive. I mean it takes a lot of work to be positive. But as long as you're willing to do the work and you're willing to focus and feeding yourself positivity, because we live in a world that we're constantly bombarded with negative messages. We're constantly bombarded with news and everything else, just trying to change our focus, and negativity grabs it real quick because it kind of puts you in that survival mindset. And when you're there, you can't grow and you can't thrive. So it's really just again getting out of that, focus on feeding yourself positivity, focus on what you do want, but at the same time being grateful for what you have now.
Man, so many good points. And yeah, I was thinking of the analogy of when you're, say, like the NASCAR driver, instead of
Mm-hmm.
they're always supposed to turn left or whatever direction. I'm not a NASCAR person, but they're always going around. But if they didn't focus on where they're turning at, but instead they decided to focus on the wall on the outside as they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to turn, well, they're probably going to be hitting that wall because they're not going to turn enough. So we have to make sure we're focused on where we're going rather than just looking off somewhere else. I mean, that could happen to us in the car too, texting or looking
Mm.
off at the mountains. If we're out somewhere in a mountainous area, we could definitely get distracted and run right off the road, and you never know what could happen. But that's not what we intended to happen, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, that happens, man. I forget what book I read it in or where I heard it. 'Cause I feel like I try to feed myself so much I kind of forget what came
Yeah.
from where. But there's like a study. They're saying that in the desert, they're trying to figure out why in the desert the cars could have went anywhere else and accident. They're getting in an accident, and they hit the one pole that was there, and like there's nothing else there because that's what they were looking at, and they'd always crash into that pole.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, this is so flat, there's nothing else. So yeah, that's all they're end up focusing on and looking at is just like, oh, there's a random pole here, and then yeah, just keep looking at it, and then boom.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy, man.
yeah, that's exactly how life is, though. If you only focus on one thing, that's literally what you're going to end up getting. And it
Mm-hmm.
goes with the positive way as well. If you focus long enough, yeah, it may be frustrating, it may be tough, but if you keep focusing on it and keep moving towards it, eventually you will hit that goal.
Mm.
So let's talk a little bit about that mindset about behind starting a podcast. Was it difficult for you? Was it something that you were like, no, I'm all in. I need to do this. This is not a big deal. I'm just going to go jump in. What was that like for you to get started on that podcast?
Yeah, it was a challenge, man. Honestly, I started kind of doing, it wasn't a podcast, but I was like doing Facebook Lives 4 years ago.
Hmm.
And I was interviewing entrepreneurs and I actually was getting a lot of traction. Like I looked back today because I realized a lot of things I'm working on now and, I'm actually building towards and making progress on now. These aren't new goals. I've had them for years.
Hmm.
And so I kind of did some reflection of what happened then. So I look back and it's funny now because it's like easier to get traction back then. It seemed like on social media and doing lives and stuff, and it's getting close to like 800 plus views a video. And I just stopped doing it one day. I think I just let that again, that negative self talk, that doubt get in my head, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody cares, nobody wants to watch this. I suck anyways. Like I'm not a great interviewer. I'm not a great speaker. I've had no training. Um, you know, I don't know why I'm doing this. There's no immediate result. And back then I'd focus more. I was always was a go getter. I used to
Mm-hmm.
wear that as a badge of honor. Like I'm a hustler. I'm a go getter. I'm gonna make it no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, kill, steal. I'm gonna make this happen. And but yeah, I've been eventually I've surrounded myself with the right people since I joined Apex. Specifically, Steve Gamlin put me onto a book called The Go Giver, and that was a big mindset shift for me. And then kind of focus on what you can give to other people. And
Mm-hmm.
it seems like almost like I don't know, like it wouldn't work. I mean, if I'm giving, what am I going to get? But when you give, you actually end up getting back more as long as you're open to receiving. So, but that was the main thing behind the podcast is I wanted to give back. I always wanted to do it. I didn't really know why. I didn't have the clear vision of why I was doing it for. But I wanted to share my story, and it's kind of like with me meeting my wife. How that was just one person who was able to change the trajectory of my life. Because then I was still suicidal right before I met her. My plan was to join the military, but I couldn't join the military because I had a criminal record. But yeah, I was joining the military. I thought that was a more honorable way to die. Um, so that
Man.
was why I wanted to go there before I met her. But yeah, it's just crazy how things work out, man. So all it takes is one person. Going one day at a time, one person. It just takes one. So it's but yeah, the podcast really it's just a way for me to get back. I know other people, especially in Apex, and after we did the closer contest, everyone shared these amazing stories and opened up. And I'm like, man, I want to share this with the world. I want to share. I mean, maybe no one will listen to my podcast, but what if one person does, and what if it helps that one person? What kind of asshole would I be if I didn't share that?
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that, man. That's something I talk about all the time and why I really started speaking as well. That all I care about really is affecting one person. I mean, yes, of course, I'd love to touch millions of people and become this super famous speaker and coach and everything. But at the end of the day, that's not what's important to me. What's important is really helping at least one person. As long as I can affect one person and change their life, that's worth it all to me.
Hmm.
And so I love that you do that. Now, you mentioned about negativity and overcoming that. What are some tactics that you use to really overcome that negative mindset for you?
Man, it's a struggle for me still. I mean, if I'm not proactively feeding myself positivity or proactive, if I'm not working out, if I'm not eating the right foods, if I'm drinking too much, if I let myself, like I've struggled with my whole life, like depression, anxiety, all that stuff. And it's a struggle, man. So I just do the work. So I did a lot of research. I take certain supplements. I take like L-theanine, ashwagandha. That kind of helps keep the a bit quieter, like you're not feeling as anxious all the time and kind of getting those negative cycles.
Mm.
But yeah, just eating the right foods, doing a lot of holistic stuff, meditation, but really just exercising. Just eating right and exercising. It's crazy how fast that'll turn around. But and I don't watch the news. You know, I purposely try to avoid negative stuff, like the news or anybody on social media that just if they gossip or if they're just complaining about gas prices or they're complaining about their boss is a jerk to them or they're complaining if they're always complaining, yeah, I cut them off. If it's someone I don't want to like unfriend, I just hit the unfollow button.
Mm.
I just make sure I'm constantly proactively feeding myself positivity because there's studies that if you don't do that, you'll automatically revert to negativity. Not even with all the other stuff that like you're the million messages you see a day, but you'll just automatically go into negativity if you're not consistently feeding yourself positivity.
Yeah, yeah, you have to make sure you're surrounding yourself with that positivity. I know I've surrounded myself with some negative people before, and all of a sudden there I go being negative and just looking at everything and just a terrible way. And it just seems like life's terrible. And just really
Hmm.
have to reflect on that and realize, hey, things really aren't that terrible. And even if they
No.
are kind of bad at the time, it's always good to go back and say, well, what's good about this situation? Why is this actually good? What's better about my situation than somebody else? Because a lot of times then we say here in America that, hey, first world problems, right?
Yeah.
It's it's something like, oh man, I didn't get to have, I don't know, curly fries instead of I had to have regular fries. Like, oh man, first world problems. Or my my drink was only cool, it wasn't cold. Yeah, first world problems. It's just we put so much emphasis on these things and we're so dramatic about how it's so terrible, yet it's really not terrible. And that's what's
Mm.
sad. And I think social media doesn't help with that because we see these highlight reels and all these people that are doing amazing things, or at least looks like it.
Mm.
But we just have to do what we have to do. And I like that you mentioned about making sure that you're eating right, exercising right. And I noticed you mentioned in there kind of like focusing, like having something that you're working towards as well. I
Mm.
think that's a big key as well, actually having something to work towards. Because if you have no purpose, it's very easy to be negative. It's very easy to just, I guess, drown yourself in sorrow, if you will,
Mm.
and everything. So having that purpose is really huge.
Yeah, man, it's a game changer, man. Knowing what you want. No, I think a lot of people don't take the time to think, hey, what do I actually want? If you don't know what you want, I mean, how are you going to get there?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So speaking of purpose and everything, I know you have the no fix flip group, right? So
Yeah,
or
that's a course. Yes,
the
that's a course. I
course.
got a group's off-market investors, but the no fix flip is a course I've been working on for a little bit now. But yeah, really just kind of going over, how I was able to have so much success in real estate in such a short period of time, and I think other people are doing it, but no one's talking about it, like any of the gurus and stuff. So it's really just this method I found that I was able to basically not without having any money, without having any experience, I was able to make over $60,000 off one deal. But again, not knowing what I was doing or not even having to use my own money. So yeah, really, I'm building a course, breaking that down so other people can get out of there. Because honestly, it's hard to be positive when you're broke and you don't know how you're gonna pay the bills. Going back to that, so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think my purpose, and I wrote it down. I've had this written down for probably 4 or 5 years, is to help people break out of negativity and poverty. So that's my main purpose. That's one big reason doing the course, one big reason doing the podcast. And again, if it just helps one person, I'm happy.
Hmm. And how long did it take you to get that 60,000 from that deal?
I was like less than 60 days. Yeah, it was like just under
Okay,
60
man,
days.
that's huge. That's for a
Yeah,
lot of people, that's a lot
yeah,
of money in 60 days, especially if
yeah,
you're in poverty. I mean,
yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy getting that check one time. Like, oh, because I've made good money for a while now. Since I've been doing the entrepreneur thing for a while. But I mean, yeah, that
Yeah.
was the most I made one time, and I'm like, oh, I'm all in for
Hmm.
this stuff now. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. So you're creating this course and you've never created a course before, right? This is the very
Right.
first one.
Yeah.
So talk. about that process. And a lot of people, they're very hesitant, even just to post a video on social media,
Yeah.
let alone create a whole course where you're literally recording yourself teaching people something. I mean, teaching's tough as well, but let's talk about that process and what was going on in your mind as you were going through that, recording the videos. And I know you had to do some editing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe you're perfect. I don't know. I'm not
No.
perfect.
Yeah.
So you probably had to go
Definitely
back
not.
and watch and listen to yourself. So
I
what
haven't
was
done
that
that part
process
yet.
like?
I'm dreading that, man. I hate listening to myself after stuff, man. It's just like the most awkward thing, but I know it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I haven't done any editing yet. I've really I got most of the content done. I still have a few more like things to go over, and I find myself like constantly like, oh, I want to add more and give more, and what else can I add to this?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so haven't it might be part of that might be because I don't want to go back and edit that stuff. Because I'm like, oh, it's yeah, I know it's gonna be rough. But but yeah, it was hard, man. Again, like that was one of my goals 4 years ago, and I was reading some of the books and I'm putting courses together that I read 4 years ago, and stuff so similar. And yeah, I was beating myself up for a bit. Cause I'm like, man, what if you were consistent? What if you took action then? How much
Mm-hmm.
further along would you be? And I looked at someone, and I know something I struggle with. And I know I shouldn't do it, and people shouldn't do it, but like comparing yourself to others. But there's a guy, and no different than me, and no special skills, and he started at the same exact time as me. He was doing the same thing, interviewing entrepreneurs, and now he's blown up because he was consistent that whole time for 4 years. So it's nice seeing like, oh, this is what would have happened if I didn't quit, and like having
Mm-hmm.
that concrete evidence. But now seeing that, like I know the cost of quitting, so I'm not willing to do that again. I'm not willing to waste any more time, and I feel like I've already wasted too much time in my life, letting self doubt and other stuff get in my way. But the big thing with the course was I wanted to do it, I wanted to do it, I wanted to do it, and then I kept hearing like people say it and like things. I actually went to a Apex meetup. Like, oh yeah, if you had a course, I'd buy it. I'm like, it caught my ear weird. And I'm like, oh, well, you'd buy it for me? I'm like, okay, like I guess. I'm like, I don't even know what I would do it on. I'm like, I guess I could do it on how I made 60K in less than 2 months and not know what I was doing. Like yeah, that's a good
Mm-hmm.
idea. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, and then Kyle Reed, he told me, he said, oh, well, I see your Facebook group, you do like a lot of free trainings and stuff in there. Like, why don't you just, make that, whatever you're doing there as part of your course. I'm like, oh, I guess I could do that. And like, so as I thought, I'm like, I already knew all the answers. I knew what I wanted to do and I just wasn't doing it. So I sat down and wrote out, I'm like, what would I have to do to write a course? And I just broke down the steps and thought about logically. And I'm like, literally just came down to like 2 steps. I said, do the thing, record the thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then sell the thing was the third step. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Maybe a little
it's time.
editing for 2B,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. This probably wasn't even that, but I'm like, oh, I was like, really, it's not as many steps as I'm building up. It is, and like in my head. So stop being a little bitch and get to work and let's get this done.
Isn't it funny? Yeah, isn't it funny how we just blow something out of proportion like that? It's just
Mm-hmm.
something we know we could easily do, or maybe not easily, but we know we could do, we know we should do, but then we're like, nah, maybe not.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Yeah. But I also think back, you mentioned about how you wish you would have started like 4 years ago. Sometimes, and I really think about when people say, what would you say to your 18-year-old self, or just say somebody 10 years, your 10-year younger version of you. And a lot of times, like based on what you know now, a lot of times I think, man, if yes, I would have loved to have known the information that I know now, but I don't think I would have been ready for it. Even if I
Right.
would have gotten it, it probably still would have taken me pretty much the whole time to
Yeah.
now to get it. Because I think a lot of the information I already kind of had,
Yeah.
but I need it to mature. And so maybe that was the same thing for you or
It
anybody
is,
in the
man. Yeah.
audience that's kind of that same spot. So I would tell you, don't beat yourself up for it. Like it's coming. You're
Yeah.
doing it now. It's gonna happen. You're in the right spot. You're in the right groups and everything. Built up the network. Maybe you wouldn't have had the network and it would have kind of flopped. Who knows?
Mm.
I
Right.
mean, even if it does flop, like you said, one person, that's all that matters
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day. You got it out there. Eventually it does come around and happen. I mean, there's, all the social media stuff, YouTube videos, especially, those are all there. And it's amazing to see how people will go back and find those, or podcasts as well, that
Mm-hmm.
it'll be years later when they go back and find them. And that'll happen with your course as well. And hopefully it doesn't flop, but people will find it years later as well. So you're
Yeah.
going to help people one way or another.
Appreciate that, man. But no, I think that's a deep question. I've actually thought a lot about that because people post that all the time. Like, oh, what would you tell your 18-year-old self or, your younger self? And I think you're right. I think I wouldn't have been ready for the information. Like even now,
Mm-hmm.
I'll read a book that I read years ago, and I have so many different takeaways.
Hmm.
just because like I'm a different person now. But yeah, I think all I would tell myself is it gets better.
Yeah. 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 So I want you, I do want you to dive a little deeper into that whole mindset
Yeah,
behind the videos though. Uh,
yeah,
could you go into that? Like, I mean, how did you feel like getting ready to hit record and everything? And how did you overcome like that whole, oh, okay, I'm going to record it?
yeah. So really, just getting out of my head. Just
Mm-hmm.
like it's not gonna be perfect, but nobody really cares as long as the information's good. I mean, I can go back and edit it and fix it after. So
Mm.
still haven't done that part yet, but it's the whole again, just just do it, get it out there, and just just wrote out a plan. And then once I had a plan, for me, every time I write something out, it like becomes easier for me because I can see the steps and I know what to do next.
Mm.
But yeah, just I went to a conference in February. It was a real estate conference, and Billy Jean was there, the marketing guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about just like he said, you guys want to know how to like really get engagement and grow and make money in marketing and all this stuff and become a better speaker. And he's like, it's real simple. He says, pull out your phone. He says, and press record.
Mm.
And that's it. We're done. I'm like, oh, is it really that simple? I'm like, it really is. It's just getting out of your own way, and it's hard to do, but I mean, it's once you do it, it's I mean, it starts to click, and it gets easier once you get those reps in.
Oh yeah, and that's what a lot of I step through with my clients on when they start getting into speaking. I mean, you have to start practicing. You have to have
Mm-hmm.
practice, and that's the beautiful thing about a phone, about social media, or even if you don't post it to social media, just having that video and taking that video on camera just gets some of those nerves out and gets you those repetitions and that practice and everything, so you can go back and start fixing it. Of course, you need some of that formalized training as well, but a lot of it just comes down to practice also. And I mean, we're all smart. We all know what a good speaker sounds like. We go watch a YouTube video to see how a good speaker speaks,
Mm.
so we can learn some things. But that's one thing I do as well. So that's really awesome that Billy Jean talks about that. But it's so true. Yeah, just get the camera out, take a video. It's gonna
Yeah,
help you
the
get
funny thing
better.
was he made us do it. Like he made everybody in the crowd do it, and so he had to pick a
Nice.
partner. So it was me and my wife, and he'd play different mood music. He's like, and
Mm-hmm.
we were saying stupid things. I don't remember what it was, but it was like I don't even remember what it was. I still have the videos on my phone, but he'd like play like this is angry music. So I'm like, oh, so you sound angry when you're saying it, and but he just made us like record ourselves back and forth. And once we got those reps in, it was a lot easier. And then once I came back home, I'm like, oh, that was one of my big takeaways. I need to make sure I keep up this habit. So I started
Mm.
making sure I was doing more reels and more stuff, and really that it's just worrying about what other people are going to think. And honestly,
Yeah.
you can't worry about what other people are going to think, especially when they aren't doing anything. If they're
Yeah.
not putting themselves out there, like who are they to judge?
Oh yeah, and the other thing is that's probably not your audience then. So who
Yeah,
cares? I mean,
right.
if they're really there to judge you, again, that's a negative person. You don't want them in
Mm-hmm.
your life anyways. They're not the person you're trying to go after. So who cares about them? And you're always going to have that. I think
Yeah.
on YouTube, the comments are like 10% of your comments typically are negative. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's the same way on other social media platforms. So just know people are going to be negative, but they're not there for you, or they're at least not ready for you if they happen to be your target audience. But more than likely, they're not your target audience.
Mm.
But I want to know, why have you not started editing those videos yet? Is it just you literally just got done recording, or you're just kind of holding off on editing?
No, it's I just I mean I didn't realize how much work it was going to take. So
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, I've been doing a lot of all nighters working on it, and I just want to like, oh, what else can I add? Just making sure I don't miss anything because I bought in a lot of courses. I probably invested like 50, 60 grand in courses over the years, and
Mm.
it's a lot of them suck. Like a lot of them
Yeah.
it's just fluff, and they don't like tell you what actually do like day in day out what activities to take. So I'm like really, I feel like as I've gone, I'm like, oh, at first I'm like I don't know what I want to share, and as the
Mm-hmm.
more I share, I'm like I have so much more stuff to share, and I started to
Mm.
write out what questions do I hear all the time, and that like I see people struggle with. I'm like, oh yeah, I know how to start LLCs. I have a bunch of LLCs. I've started a bunch over the years. I can put that in there. I know how to do marketing and digital marketing. I've had digital marketing companies. So I think I'm just really just I keep thinking of more ways to add more and more value to it because I want to make sure if
Mm.
anyone does trust me with their money to invest, in themselves, but like with in me helping them, like I want to make sure I over deliver. So I think it's just more. I'm like I just keep adding more and more to it. But
Yeah. Man, it almost sounds like it's a multi-tiered course though. Like it should be really separate
It probably
courses,
should
not
be
to.
separate courses. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I mean, if you're talking about the creation of the LLC, that's like
Hmm.
starting a business, but then you're talking about digital marketing. So now you're talking about the marketing piece, which of course
Hmm.
some of that could go into starting the business and the real estate side, but that's really almost a separate piece as well. And then obviously the real estate portion, and just depending on how in depth you go, maybe it's like a couple part series as well. Because that's another thing with video courses that I see a lot of people, they'll do like 45-minute videos, and it's like 10
Hmm.
45-minute videos. You're like, dude, this is 450 minutes of content. This is a lot of content and it's overwhelming. And then you're not going to watch the whole thing at once. And you probably shouldn't watch the whole thing at once because it's so much
Yeah.
information. So to me, more bite-sized chunks, anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes, is really better as far as video content goes
Yeah, that's
for
smart.
courses.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm gonna have to, once I'm finally done putting all this out there, I'm gonna have to see what's what, and yeah, try to get it all
Yeah,
organized
you'll
ahead of
probably
time.
find out that you have some stuff that kind of overlaps, that you kind of
Hmm.
ramble on, if you will, about it, but you could
Yeah.
probably could break it up a little bit in
Hmm.
there. So I'm sure you figure that out. But yeah, so I can see why you're not done with the editing. So I was curious if it was kind of a mindset thing that had you not getting to the editing yet, but it sounds like you just got so much stuff and you're still trying to figure out, what all it is at the beginning. But I love that you did take that imperfect action on that and just get started. Because yeah,
Hmm.
it's time to get going, man. I want to see those videos come out. I want to see that course come out. I know you've been talking about it and trying to help people out, and I know it will help out a ton of people.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm excited, man. I really am. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I've been on fire working on it. So it's
Mm.
cool when you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because it's just like things start to click and I mean, it doesn't feel like work. So it's been fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. So I want to ask you one last question. If you could give any piece of advice to anybody right now, just something that's on your heart, it doesn't have to be anything to do with what we've talked about so far. What's that piece of advice that you give?
Yeah, really just go about it one day at a time. I mean, just what can you do today? I mean, the big thing I do, like you mentioned, the power list. Do that
Hmm.
power list, man, and write down what are the five most important things I could do today to push the ball forward and get to my goal. So
Mm.
just decide what you want, break it down backwards, make a plan, and then every day, just I really try to break my goals down from the long term uh, to quarterly, to monthly, to weekly, all the way down to the daily. So I try to have like what are the three daily activities I want to focus on every day, and I
Hmm.
know those are going to push the ball forward. So
Nice. So appreciate you coming on, Kai, giving all this great information. And if people want to connect with you and figure out about this course once it comes out and everything, just to follow you, where's the best place to connect with you?
yeah, really just anywhere on social media. Probably most active on Facebook, but it's just Ky Logue, so KYLOGUE. But yeah, I'd love to connect. Anything I can do to help your audience or provide value in any way, I'm more than happy to do so.
Awesome. Well, again, appreciate it.